1. The Architect. Arnold Fisher stood at the drafting table in his home office, meticulously reviewing the blueprints for what would be his final project before retirement. At 65, his hands weren't as steady as they once were, but his mind remained sharp as the pencils he kept in perfect alignment on his desk. The Westridge Commercial Complex would be his legacy, a crowning achievement after 40 years as one of the most respected architects in the industry. His firm, Fisher Designs, had grown from a one-man operation to employing over 50 people. Through recessions and building booms, Arnold had navigated the treacherous waters of the construction industry with a combination of talent, foresight, and ruthless determination that few knew lurked beneath his composed exterior. The doorbell rang, interrupting his concentration. Arnold glanced at his watch, 9:30 p.m., before making his way downstairs. Through the peephole, he recognized Bill Donahue, his attorney and one of the few people he genuinely trusted. "Bill," Arnold said, opening the door. "It's late for a house call." Bill's normally confident demeanor seemed subdued. "Can I come in? There's something we need to discuss." In the living room, Bill declined a drink and got straight to business. "I've been handling your affairs for 20 years, Arnold. In that time, I've never seen anything that made me question your judgment until now." Arnold raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "There's been unusual activity with your accounts. Large sums being transferred to offshore holdings I didn't set up. Your pension fund has been accessed." "That's impossible," Arnold said, his voice calm despite the simmering anger beneath. "I'm the only one with authorization." "Not anymore," Bill replied, sliding a folder across the coffee table. "2 months ago, your wife, Beverly, became a co-signer on nearly everything you own." Arnold stared at the documents, recognizing his signature, except he'd never signed them. A perfect forgery. "There's more," Bill continued. "I received a call from Howard Layton at your firm. There's talk of buying you out at a fraction of your shares worth once you retire next week." Howard thought I already knew about it. Arnold sat back, pieces falling into place. His daughter Tiffany had been pressing him about retirement for months. His son Greg had suddenly become interested in the firm's finances. And Beverly, his wife of 41 years, had been distant, taking more trips to visit her sister than ever before. "Who else knows you're here?" Arnold asked. "No one. I came straight from the office when I found these discrepancies." Arnold nodded, his decision already made. "I need you to do exactly as I say, Bill. And tell no one." After Bill left, Arnold sat alone in his darkened living room. The betrayal cut deep, but not because of love that had faded years ago. No, what Arnold couldn't stomach was the disrespect, the assumption that he could be so easily outmaneuvered after decades of strategic thinking. His phone buzzed with a text from Beverly. "Don't forget your retirement dinner tomorrow night. Everyone will be there." Arnold allowed himself a cold smile. Yes, everyone would be there indeed. Chapter 2. The Family Business. The next morning, Arnold entered the offices of Fisher Designs with his usual methodical precision. Employees nodded respectfully as he passed, some offering early congratulations on his retirement. He acknowledged them with practiced cordiality while observing who seemed genuinely sad to see him go and who could barely contain their excitement. In the conference room, Arnold found his son Greg huddled with Howard Layton, the firm's financial officer. They separated awkwardly when he entered. "Dad," Greg exclaimed with forced enthusiasm. "Shouldn't you be at home relaxing? Tomorrow's the big day." At 34, Greg Fisher had his father's height, but none of his discipline. He joined the firm 10 years ago, more out of obligation than passion, and had never advanced beyond middle management despite the Fisher name. "Just tying up loose ends," Arnold replied. "Howard, I'd like those quarterly projections on my desk by noon." Howard paled. "Quarterly projections? But you're retiring. And until I do, this remains my company." Arnold's tone left no room for discussion. After Howard scurried away, Greg attempted damage control. "Dad, we've been talking about the transition. With you retiring, it might make sense to restructure some things." "I'm sure that's true," Arnold said noncommittally. "Where's your sister?" Greg checked his watch. "Tiffany had a breakfast meeting with the Westridge investors. She should be back soon." Unlike her brother, Tiffany Fisher had inherited Arnold's ambition and cunning. At 39, she'd risen to become the firm's head of business development. She was smart, driven, and, as Arnold had recently discovered, utterly disloyal. As if summoned by the thought, Tiffany strode into the room, impeccably dressed and radiating confidence. "Dad, I didn't expect to see you today." "Clearly," Arnold replied. "How was your meeting with Westridge?" A flicker of surprise crossed Tiffany's face. "Productive. They're excited about breaking ground next month." "Interesting. Because Roger Hammond called me this morning to confirm our lunch tomorrow." He seemed unaware of any breakfast meeting. Tiffany recovered quickly. "Not Roger. I met with Diane from their legal team about some contractual details." Arnold let the lie hang in the air, noting how Greg shifted uncomfortably while Tiffany maintained eye contact. "I see. Well, I look forward to hearing all about it at the dinner tonight." Before leaving, Arnold stopped by his office. From his safe, he removed a small flash drive and several documents, placing them in his briefcase. Then he accessed his computer, making a few crucial adjustments to files that would remain dormant until needed. On his way out, he passed Tiffany's assistant, Zoe, a bright young woman who'd always shown him respect. "Mr. Fisher," she called out, "I have those files you requested on the Westridge project, the original drafts and the revised versions." Arnold took the folder, recognizing an ally. "Thank you, Zoe. Your attention to detail is why you'll go far in this business." By the time Arnold arrived home, Beverly was in full preparation mode for the evening's festivities. At 63, she still maintained her figure and carefully colored her blonde hair to hide any gray. She moved around their expansive kitchen, directing the catering staff with practiced authority. "There you are," she said when she spotted him. "I've been calling you all morning." "I had matters to attend to at the office," Arnold replied, watching her closely. "Bill Donahue stopped by last night." Beverly's hands paused briefly before continuing to arrange flowers. "Oh, what did he want?" "Just some paperwork for the retirement." "Speaking of which, who all is coming tonight?" "Just family and close friends," Beverly said, not meeting his eyes. "Your partners from the firm, of course." "Oh, and I invited Roy Sullivan." Arnold kept his expression neutral at the mention of Roy, a real estate developer he'd worked with occasionally. "Roy Sullivan? I wasn't aware you two were close." "We're not," Beverly replied too quickly. "But he's been instrumental in the Westridge project, so I thought it appropriate." Arnold nodded, pieces continuing to fall into place. "Of course. Very thoughtful of you." He headed upstairs to shower and change, pausing in their bedroom to open Beverly's top drawer. Buried beneath her scarves was a burner phone. The text messages confirmed what he already suspected. Beverly and Roy Sullivan had been having an affair for at least a year. More damning were the messages discussing the plan and how they needed to secure the assets before Arnold's retirement. There were texts to both Greg and Tiffany, coordinating their efforts to push him out and claim everything he'd built. Arnold returned the phone exactly as he'd found it and went to prepare for his retirement dinner. His face revealed nothing of the cold fury building inside him. Chapter 3: The Retirement Dinner. The private dining room at the Lakeside Club glowed with warm lighting and the murmur of conversation. 40 guests mingled, drinking expensive champagne and exchanging stories about Arnold's career. In a corner, Roy Sullivan laughed too loudly with Howard Layton, both men casting occasional glances toward Arnold. Beverly flitted from group to group, the perfect hostess in her sleek black dress, making sure everyone's glass remained full. She'd barely spoken to Arnold since they'd arrived, but her nervous energy was palpable. Arnold moved through the crowd with measured steps, accepting congratulations with gracious nods. He noted who seemed genuinely pleased for him and who couldn't quite meet his eyes. The map of betrayal and loyalty became clearer with each interaction. When dinner was announced, he found himself at the head of the long table, with Beverly to his right and Tiffany to his left. Greg sat beside his mother, while Roy Sullivan had somehow secured a seat directly across from Beverly. As the first course was served, Arnold rose to his feet, tapping his glass for attention. The room quieted expectantly. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began. 40 years is a long time to dedicate to a profession. I've watched architectural trends come and go, seen buildings rise and fall, and through it all, I've held to one principle: integrity in design. A building without a strong foundation is destined to collapse. He paused, looking directly at his family. The same is true of relationships. Without trust, they crumble under pressure. The subtle shift in the room's atmosphere was perceptible only to those who understood the undercurrents. Beverly's smile froze in place. Tiffany straightened in her chair. Greg suddenly found his napkin fascinating. To mark this occasion, Arnold continued, I'd like to make a few announcements about the future of Fisher Designs. Howard Layton leaned forward eagerly, while Roy Sullivan's eyes narrowed. First, I'm pleased to announce that the Westridge Commercial Complex will proceed as planned, with one significant change. Instead of breaking ground next month, construction will begin immediately under my direct supervision. Tiffany's head snapped up. But Dad, the schedule has been adjusted, Arnold finished for her. I spoke with Roger Hammond this afternoon. He was quite interested to learn about certain modifications that were being proposed without his knowledge. Before anyone could respond, the double doors to the dining room opened, and Bill Donahue entered, carrying a leather portfolio. He nodded to Arnold and took up a position near the wall. Second, I've decided not to retire just yet. Arnold's announcement sent a ripple of surprise through the room. There are aspects of the business that require my continued attention. Beverly found her voice. But darling, we've planned everything. The travel, the new house in Palm Springs. Yes, the house, Arnold said thoughtfully. I've been meaning to discuss that with you. He gestured to Bill, who stepped forward and placed the portfolio on the table. From it, Arnold withdrew several documents. These are interesting reading, he said conversationally. Transfer of power documents, banking authorizations, property deeds, all with my signature. Except I never signed them. The color drained from Beverly's face. Greg looked ready to bolt, while Tiffany maintained her composure despite the sudden tension. Arnold, Beverly began, her voice strained. I don't know what you're talking about. No. Arnold turned to Roy Sullivan. Perhaps Roy can enlighten us. After all, it was his handwriting expert who forged my signature so convincingly. Sullivan's face hardened. That's a serious accusation, Fisher. You'll want to be careful. Oh, I'm always careful, Arnold replied. Which is why I had security cameras installed in my home office 3 years ago. The footage of Beverly removing documents from my safe makes for compelling viewing. A heavy silence fell over the room. Guests who had come expecting a celebration now found themselves unwilling witnesses to a family implosion. Beverly recovered first, her shock transforming into cold determination. She reached into her purse and removed a thick envelope, sliding it across the table to Arnold. We'd planned to do this privately, she said, her voice steady. But since you insist on making a scene. Arnold opened the envelope to find divorce papers, already signed by Beverly, with sticky tabs indicating where his signature was required. 41 years, he said quietly. And this is how you choose to end it. Your pension is ours, you get nothing. Greg blurted out, emboldened by alcohol and the conviction that their plan was still salvageable. Tiffany, ever more calculating, added with a cruel smile. Congrats on 40 years of wasting your life, old man. Did you really think we'd let you control everything forever? Arnold surveyed the faces of his family, his wife, his daughter, his son, and saw not a trace of remorse or affection. Only greed and the frustration of schemes disrupted. With deliberate movements, he removed a pen from his pocket and signed every sticky tab page in the divorce papers. Understood, he said, pushing the envelope back to Beverly. Then he stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and addressed the stunned room. Dinner is, I believe, concluded. Thank you all for coming. As he walked out, he heard Beverly hiss to Bill. Is he serious? He just signed everything away. Bill's response was lost as the door closed behind Arnold. Outside in the cool night air, he took a deep breath and checked his watch. The first phase of his plan was complete. Now came the disappearance. Chapter 4, Going Dark. 3 days after walking out of his retirement dinner, Arnold Fisher had effectively vanished. He'd cleared out his office at Fisher Designs, taking only personal items and leaving no note. His cell phone went straight to voicemail. His email returned automated responses. His credit cards remained unused. Beverly Fisher paced the marble floor of their living room, phone pressed to her ear. Pick up. Damn it, she muttered as Tiffany's call went to voicemail for the 3rd time. She'd awakened that morning to find all the household accounts frozen. Her credit cards were declined when she tried to buy groceries. Even the utilities were scheduled to be shut off by the end of the week. The doorbell rang, and Beverly rushed to answer it, hoping for Arnold. Instead, she found 2 stern-faced individuals in suits. Mrs. Fisher? I'm Special Agent Walsh with the FBI, and this is Agent Cooper. We need to ask you some questions about Fisher Designs and certain financial irregularities. Beverly's knees nearly buckled. There must be some mistake. My husband handles all the company finances. Yes, we're looking for Mr. Fisher as well, Agent Walsh said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. But our investigation indicates that you've been a signatory on several accounts where questionable transactions occurred. I only signed what I was told to sign. Beverly stammered, her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. Across town, Tiffany Fisher was experiencing her own crisis. She'd arrived at the office to find the locks changed and security guards posted at the entrance. "I'm sorry, Miss Fisher," the guard said with professional detachment. "We have orders not to allow you or Mr. Greg Fisher on the premises pending an internal investigation." Investigation? By whose authority? Tiffany demanded, her usual confidence faltering. "The board of directors, ma'am. They called an emergency meeting last night." Inside, the employees had gathered in the main conference room, where Bill Donahue addressed them alongside Zoe Winters, Tiffany's former assistant who now appeared to be in a position of unexpected authority. "As you've probably heard," Bill was saying, "Fisher Designs is undergoing some structural changes. Mr. Arnold Fisher has temporarily stepped back from day-to-day operations, but remains the majority shareholder. Until the current situation is resolved, Ms. Winters will be acting as interim operations manager." The employees murmured in confusion. Zoe, only 28 and previously just an assistant, looked both determined and slightly overwhelmed by her new role. "What about Tiffany and Greg Fisher?" someone asked. Bill cleared his throat. "They are currently on administrative leave pending an investigation into certain financial discrepancies." Outside the building, Tiffany's phone rang. It was Greg, his voice pitched high with panic. "Tiff, the bank just called. Our accounts are frozen. All of them. And there are 2 FBI agents at my apartment asking about offshore transfers." "Calm down," Tiffany ordered, though she felt anything but calm herself. "It's just Dad trying to scare us. He can't possibly have." "It's not just Dad," Greg interrupted. "They mentioned Roy Sullivan too. They have records of meetings, phone calls, everything." Tiffany's blood ran cold. She glanced at her watch, 11:30 a.m. By her count, that made 43 messages she'd left for her father since the retirement dinner. He hadn't responded to a single one. Meanwhile, in a modest hotel room 30 miles away, Arnold sat at a small desk, laptop open before him. On the screen, a series of surveillance feeds showed his home, the Fisher Designs offices, and Roy Sullivan's penthouse apartment. Arnold watched dispassionately as FBI agents questioned Beverly, as Tiffany was turned away from the office, as Greg paced his apartment in panic. He observed Roy Sullivan being escorted from his building in handcuffs, the developer's face a mask of fury and disbelief. A knock at the door interrupted his viewing. Arnold closed the laptop and admitted Bill Donahue, who carried a thick folder and looked exhausted. "It's done," Bill said without preamble. The board voted unanimously to suspend Tiffany and Greg pending investigation. The FBI has enough evidence on Sullivan to keep him busy for months, and the divorce papers have been officially filed. Arnold nodded, showing no emotion. "And the Westridge project?" "Proceeding as planned, under Zoe's supervision. She's young but capable." The investors were initially concerned, but once I showed them the original plans versus what Tiffany and Sullivan were proposing to substitute with cheaper materials, they understood the situation. "Good," Arnold said, turning to the window. "And Beverly?" Bill sighed, claiming complete ignorance, of course. "Says she was manipulated by Sullivan. The FBI isn't buying it, especially after finding the offshore account in her name. An account she created 6 months ago," Arnold noted. "Long before Sullivan convinced her to betray me." The lawyer studied his old friend. "Arnold, are you sure about this? It's not too late to step in, minimize the damage. They're still your family." Arnold's expression hardened. "They stopped being my family the moment they decided I was worth more to them dead than alive." "Dead?" Bill echoed, shocked. "Surely they weren't." "Phase 2 of their plan," Arnold interrupted. "After securing my assets, Beverly and Sullivan planned a convenient accident during our retirement travels. Tiffany found a doctor willing to testify that I was showing early signs of dementia, making my death while operating a boat or car more plausible." Bill sank into a chair. "How did you discover all this?" "I've been suspicious for months. Small inconsistencies, conversations that stopped when I entered a room. So I planted information, monitored their reactions, and installed surveillance. The retirement announcement was the final test. It accelerated their timeline and forced them to make mistakes. Arnold turned back to his laptop, opening a different file. Now we move to phase 2 of my plan. I need you to make some arrangements. Chapter 5, The Puppet Master. 1 week after his disappearance, Arnold Fisher sat in a rented cabin overlooking Lake Tahoe. The isolation suited him as he methodically dismantled the lives of those who had betrayed him. His phone rang. One of only 3 people had this number. Yes, Zoe. Mr. Fisher, the board approved the restructuring plan, Zoe Winters reported. With the evidence you provided about the financial mismanagement under Tiffany's guidance, they were eager to implement the new security protocols. And the Westridge contracts. Redrawn as you specified. The investors are actually relieved. The quality controls you've added increase long-term value even if they reduce immediate profit margins. Arnold nodded, pleased with his protégé's efficiency. He'd identified Zoe's potential early, cultivating her loyalty while keeping her at enough distance that his family never recognized her as a threat. There's something else, Zoe added. Roy Sullivan is offering to cooperate with authorities. He's claiming Beverly was the mastermind, that she approached him with the plan to forge your signature and seize control of your assets. Arnold permitted himself a thin smile. Predictable. And my children. Greg is cooperating too, pointing fingers at both Tiffany and Beverly. Tiffany, however, has hired separate counsel and is fighting every accusation. Of course she is, Arnold said. She's the only one with any backbone. After ending the call, Arnold opened his laptop to check on another aspect of his plan. The financial trap he'd set was working perfectly. By appearing to sign the divorce papers without contest, he'd lulled Beverly and her co-conspirators into a false sense of security. What they didn't know was that he'd already transferred the majority of his assets into new sheltered trusts, leaving only enough in the original accounts to bait his family into actions that could be traced and documented. Now, as they desperately tried to access money that wasn't there, they were creating an electronic trail of attempted fraud that strengthened his position by the hour. His phone rang again, Bill this time. The forensic accountants finished their preliminary review, the attorney reported. They've documented at least 30 instances where Tiffany or Beverly forged your signature on financial documents in the past year. The FBI is particularly interested in the offshore transfers. And the pension fund? That's the most damning part. There's evidence they plan to drain it completely and frame you for mismanagement, leaving the employees with nothing while they walked away with millions. Arnold's jaw tightened. The pension fund held retirement savings for every employee at Fisher Designs, some of whom had been with him for decades. That his own family would destroy those people's futures for their own gain hardened his resolve. Implement the contingency plan for the employees, he instructed. Transfer the backup funds to secure the pensions at 110% of their projected value. Already done, Bill confirmed. There's something else. Beverly has been trying to contact you through my office. She's claiming she was coerced, that Sullivan threatened her. No, Arnold said firmly. No contact. After hanging up, Arnold sat in silence, gazing at the lake. For decades, he'd believed his greatest creation was his architectural firm. Now he realized his true masterpiece was this elaborate trap, designed to give his betrayers exactly what they deserved. His third phone call of the day came just after sunset. Mr. Fisher? This is Detective Morales with County Police. We've detained a woman attempting to break into your Lake Tahoe property. She claims to be your daughter. 20 minutes later, Arnold walked into the small police station to find Tiffany sitting defiantly in an interview room. She looked disheveled, her normally perfect appearance frayed at the edges. When Arnold entered, she leapt to her feet. Dad, thank God. You have to stop this. Arnold remained standing, keeping the table between them. Stop what exactly? This vindictive campaign. The FBI, the board, the frozen accounts. You've destroyed everything we built. We, Arnold repeated coldly. I don't recall your contribution to 40 years of my work. Tiffany switched tactics, her eyes filling with tears. Dad, please. Mom made a mistake. We all did. But this punishment is too extreme. Punishment implies I'm seeking justice, Arnold replied. I'm not. I'm simply protecting what's mine. By ruining us. Tiffany demanded, her facade cracking. Greg can barely function. Mom might go to prison. Is that what you want? Arnold studied his daughter, seeing in her the same calculating intelligence he possessed, but none of the principles he'd tried to instill. What I wanted, he said quietly, was a family I could trust. Clearly, that was too much to ask. Tiffany lunged across the table, her composure completely shattered. You self-righteous bastard. You never gave us a chance to run things our way. You controlled everything. As officers pulled her back, she screamed, "You'll regret this. We still have cards to play." Arnold watched impassively as they led her away, then turned to Detective Morales. "I won't be pressing charges for the attempted break-in, but I would like a restraining order." Driving back to his cabin, Arnold pondered Tiffany's parting threat. He'd anticipated most contingencies, but his daughter's desperation made her unpredictable. Perhaps it was time to accelerate the final phase of his plan. Chapter 6. Pawns and Players. 2 weeks into Arnold's strategic disappearance, the situation had deteriorated dramatically for the Fisher family. Beverly sat in her attorney's office, listening with increasing despair as he outlined their position. "Mrs. Fisher, to be blunt, it's not good," the lawyer said. "The divorce proceedings are moving forward, and Mr. Fisher's documentation of your activities is extensive. The prenuptial agreement you signed 41 years ago is still valid, and the evidence of your attempts to circumvent it through forgery and fraud strengthen his case for receiving the maximum protection under its terms." "What about the house?" Beverly asked, her voice small. "Surely I'm entitled to half our primary residence." The attorney hesitated. "About that, it appears the residence was transferred to a corporate entity 5 years ago. You signed the papers yourself." "I never signed." Beverly stopped, the realization hitting her. He knew. He's known for years, hasn't he? It certainly appears Mr. Fisher has been several steps ahead throughout this process. After leaving the attorney's office, Beverly drove to Greg's apartment, finding her son in a state of near collapse. Empty liquor bottles littered the coffee table, and he hadn't shaved in days. "They fired me," he slurred when she entered. "Officially terminated this morning. No severance, no references." Beverly sank onto the couch beside him. "Your father is systematically destroying us." "Did you really think he wouldn't?" Greg asked bitterly. "Dad never forgives anyone who crosses him. Remember Uncle Peter?" Beverly shuddered, recalling Arnold's brother who had once borrowed money from the firm without permission. Arnold had not only forced him to repay every penny, but had also ensured he never worked in construction again. Peter had eventually moved to Alaska, and Arnold had never spoken his name since. "We need to find him," Beverly said. "Convince him to stop this vendetta." Greg laughed humorlessly. "Good luck with that. Tiffany's already tried." She said he looked at her like she was a stranger. "Where is your sister?" "Who knows?" After her stunt at Lake Tahoe, she went dark. Probably plotting some desperate move that will only make things worse. Beverly's phone rang, an unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Mrs. Fisher? This is Agent Walsh. We need you to come to our office immediately. New evidence has emerged in our investigation." After ending the call, Beverly stared at her son. "They found something else. This is never going to end, is it?" Greg shook his head slowly. "Not until Dad decides it's over." While Beverly and Greg grappled with their collapsing world, Tiffany Fisher was indeed plotting. In a cheap motel room, she met with a man whose expertise lay in areas outside the law. "I need you to find someone," she told him, sliding across a folder with Arnold's photograph and details. "He's gone to ground, but he's not as clever as he thinks." The man, who called himself Mercer, flipped through the information. "Ex-military." "No, an architect," Tiffany said impatiently. "But he's shrewd and careful." Mercer raised an eyebrow. "Going after your own father? That's cold even by my standards." "He left us no choice," Tiffany snapped. "He's systematically destroying everything we've worked for. And once I find him..." Tiffany hesitated only briefly. "I need leverage. Something that will force him to back off." "That's pretty vague, lady." "Just find him," Tiffany insisted. "I'll handle the rest." Meanwhile, in a secluded mountain property in Colorado, Arnold had relocated to continue orchestrating his counterattack. The cabin in Tahoe had served its purpose, allowing Tiffany to find him exactly when he wanted to be found. Now, as he reviewed security footage from his new surveillance system, he spotted an unfamiliar vehicle driving slowly past the property. Right on schedule, Arnold picked up his phone. "Bill, We have visitors earlier than expected. Implement Security Protocol 3. Within an hour, 3 unmarked vehicles containing private security personnel had established positions around the property. Arnold had anticipated Tiffany's move. She was predictable in her desperation. His other phone rang, the secure line for Zoe. "Mr. Fisher, there's been a development," she reported tensely. "Someone accessed the server containing the Westridge plans. They downloaded the original designs with your digital signature." Arnold processed this information. When, 20 minutes ago, the system flagged it because the access came through Roy Sullivan's credentials, which should have been deactivated. "They weren't deactivated," Arnold corrected her. "They were monitored." "Who logged in from Sullivan's account?" "The IP address traces back to a device registered to Tiffany." Arnold nodded to himself. As expected, she's gathering ammunition, looking for a way to force a compromise. Should we lock her out? No, Arnold decided. Let her think she's found something valuable. It's time to spring the final trap. After ending the call, Arnold opened his laptop and activated a program that had lain dormant for weeks. Across the country, electronic triggers fired, releasing information packages to specific recipients: journalists, industry regulators, ethics committees, and law enforcement agencies. Arnold watched as his elaborate chess game entered its endgame. All the pieces were in position. His family had made exactly the moves he'd anticipated, driven by greed and desperation into the corners he'd designed for them. Now it was time for the final confrontation. Chapter 7: Convergence. 3 weeks after walking out of his retirement dinner, Arnold Fisher sat in the conference room of the Mountain View Resort, watching the snow fall outside. The elegant Colorado Lodge offered both luxury and discretion, perfect for what he had planned. Across from him, Bill Donahue reviewed documents while they waited. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Arnold? Once we proceed, there's no going back." "I've never been more certain of anything," Arnold replied, his resolve unwavering. A discreet knock at the door announced the arrival of Zoe Winters, who entered carrying a tablet and looking apprehensive. "They're here," she reported. "All 3 of them, just as you predicted." Arnold nodded. "And our other guests?" "In position. The FBI agents are in the lobby. The board members are in the adjacent conference room. The journalists are being kept in the hotel bar for now." "Excellent. Show them in, one at a time. Beverly first." When Beverly Fisher entered the conference room, her confident stride faltered at the sight of her husband. Arnold sat imperiously at the head of the table, flanked by Bill and Zoe, looking entirely in control. "Arnold," Beverly began, summoning her most conciliatory tone. "Thank you for finally agreeing to meet. This situation has gotten completely out of hand." Arnold gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Beverly." She complied, smoothing her skirt nervously. "I want you to know that I never intended things to go this far. Roy Sullivan manipulated me." "Spare me," Arnold interrupted coldly. "I have recordings of you and Sullivan planning my accident after retirement. The dementia diagnosis you arranged. The offshore accounts you established long before Sullivan entered the picture." Beverly paled but rallied quickly. "Whatever you think you know, we can work this out privately. For the sake of our history together, our children. Our children are next on the agenda," Arnold said, checking his watch. "In fact, Greg should be arriving right about now." On cue, the door opened, and Greg stumbled in, looking haggard and unkempt. His eyes widened at the sight of his mother. "Dad, Mom, what's going on? I got a message saying you wanted to negotiate." "Sit down, Greg," Arnold directed. "We're just waiting for your sister to complete our family reunion." Greg took a seat, casting nervous glances between his parents. "Look, Dad, I know things got messed up, but I was just following Tiffany and Mom's lead. They said you were becoming erratic, that we needed to protect the company." "By stealing from it?" Arnold asked quietly. "By draining the pension fund that supports loyal employees who've worked for me for decades." Before Greg could respond, the door flew open, and Tiffany strode in, her face flushed with triumph. She slapped a folder onto the table. "I've got you now," she announced, glaring at her father. "Original Westridge plans with your signature, alongside modified versions that reduce costs by 40% while maintaining the same fee structure. Fraud, pure and simple." Arnold smiled thinly. "Is that what you think you found, Tiffany?" "Look again." Confused, Tiffany opened the folder and spread out the documents. Her confident expression wavered as she studied them more closely. These aren't. These are from 5 years ago. A different project entirely. Yes, Arnold confirmed. The River Heights development. A project where I caught an ambitious young employee trying to substitute inferior materials and pocket the difference. An employee I fired and then blacklisted from the industry. Tiffany's face drained of color. You baited me. I did, Arnold acknowledged. Just as I've been baiting all of you for months. Every move you've made has been anticipated and countered. Every desperate attempt to save yourselves has only entangled you further in legal consequences. Beverly found her voice. Why? If you knew what we were planning, why not just confront us? Why this elaborate revenge? Because you needed to understand exactly who you were dealing with, Arnold replied, his voice dangerously soft. For years, you've taken my restraint for weakness. My focus on work as detachment. You mistook my trust in family as naivety. He stood, commanding the room with his presence. That ends today. I've arranged this meeting to offer each of you a choice. Arnold pressed a button on the conference phone. Zoe, please ask our additional guests to join us. The door opened again, admitting 2 FBI agents, 3 board members from Fisher Designs, and a distinguished-looking woman Arnold introduced as Judge Patricia Holbrook. What is this? Beverly demanded, panic edging into her voice. This, Arnold explained calmly, is your reckoning. Chapter 8, The Ultimatum. As the newcomers took seats around the expanded conference table, Arnold remained standing, now unquestionably in command of the room. Let me introduce everyone, he began. Agents Walsh and Cooper you already know. They've been building a case against all of you for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The board members are here to witness corporate decisions. And Judge Holbrook has kindly agreed to oversee the legal aspects of what I'm about to propose. He turned to Zoe. Please distribute the documents. Zoe handed each person a thick folder containing meticulously organized paperwork. Arnold waited as they skimmed the contents, watching comprehension and dismay spread across faces. These agreements represent your options, Arnold explained. Option 1. You sign, admitting your guilt and accepting my terms. Option 2. You refuse, and I provide authorities with the complete evidence package I've assembled, guaranteeing maximum criminal charges and civil penalties. Beverly was the first to speak, her voice trembling with rage. This is blackmail. No, Judge Holbrook interjected. Having reviewed these documents, I can assure you they constitute a legal settlement offer. Unusually comprehensive, perhaps, but entirely legitimate. Tiffany flipped through her folder with increasing agitation. You want me to surrender my shares in the company, forfeit all claims to your estate, admit professional misconduct, and accept a 10-year ban from working in architecture or design. In exchange for which, Arnold noted, the most serious criminal charges against you would be dropped. You'd avoid prison. Greg looked up from his papers, confused. My terms are different. I just have to admit my role, surrender my shares, and move to the Seattle office as a junior designer. Arnold nodded. Your involvement was primarily as a follower, not an instigator. You have some design talent, if not leadership abilities. The Seattle office could use someone with your qualifications, under strict supervision. And me? Beverly demanded, her knuckles white as she gripped her folder. You expect me to accept a divorce settlement that leaves me with nothing but a small condo in Phoenix and a modest monthly stipend? You conspired to kill me, Beverly, Arnold stated flatly. Be grateful the option exists to avoid spending your remaining years in prison. Agent Walsh cleared his throat. Mr. Fisher has been cooperating with our investigation. The evidence of conspiracy to commit murder is compelling, Mrs. Fisher. Without this agreement, we would be pursuing maximum charges. Beverly's facade cracked entirely. This is insane. Roy Sullivan came up with that plan, not me. I never would have gone through with it. The recordings suggest otherwise, Arnold said coldly. Your enthusiasm for the idea was quite evident. Tiffany, always the strategist, had been scanning her documents more carefully. There's a deadline on these offers. Midnight tonight. Correct, Arnold confirmed. By morning, I need to know who's accepting my terms and who's choosing to fight in court. Choose wisely. He gestured to the board members. These gentlemen are here because immediately following your decisions, we'll be holding an emergency board meeting to formalize the new structure of Fisher Designs. with or without your participation. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled on the Fisher family. Arnold watched them dispassionately, noting the different stages of realization crossing their faces. Beverly looked shell-shocked, Greg seemed resigned, and Tiffany, always his most similar child, appeared to be calculating odds and possibilities. "I'll give you 1 hour to review the documents and consult privately," Arnold announced. "Then I'll speak with each of you individually to hear your decisions." As he turned to leave, Tiffany called out, "What about Roy Sullivan? Why isn't he here?" Arnold paused at the door. "Mr. Sullivan signed his agreement yesterday. In exchange for testimony against all of you, he received certain considerations." After Arnold left with the officials, the three Fishers sat in stunned silence until Beverly spoke. "He's bluffing. He won't really send his own family to prison." Tiffany laughed bitterly. "Are you still not getting it, Mom? He absolutely will. Dad never bluffs, and he never forgives. We're only alive right now because he wants us to suffer the consequences, not escape them through a quick conviction." Greg rubbed his face wearily. "I'm taking the deal. Seattle isn't what I planned, but it's better than prison." "Coward," Beverly spat. "Realist," Greg countered. "Look at these files. He has recordings, documentation, witnesses. He's got U.S. dead to rights, and you know it." While they argued, Tiffany continued examining her documents with growing unease. The evidence against her was even more comprehensive than she'd feared. Emails she thought deleted, phone calls she believed private, meetings she was certain had remained secret, all meticulously documented. Worst of all was the section detailing how she'd planned to manipulate the Westridge project, substituting inferior materials that would have compromised structural integrity. If that information became public, she'd face not just fraud charges, but potential manslaughter if the building ever failed. After their hour was up, Arnold met with each family member individually. Greg went first, returning ashen-faced, but with signed documents. Beverly went next, emerging red-eyed but seemingly composed. Tiffany was last, storming into the room with defiance still etched on her face. "Before you make your decision," Arnold said before she could speak, "there's something you should see." He opened his laptop and played a video recording of Roy Sullivan speaking to the FBI, detailing how Tiffany had been the architect of the entire scheme, including the plans for Arnold's accident. "He threw you under the bus completely," Arnold observed. "Claims you approached him with the plan, seduced him into participating, and handled all the logistics." Tiffany watched in horrified silence as her former co-conspirators systematically dismantled any defense she might have constructed. "Of course, I know Sullivan is lying about many details," Arnold continued. "He was never a follower in anything. But his testimony, combined with the evidence I've gathered, creates an airtight case against you." He closed the laptop. "The choice is yours. Sign and accept a diminished but possible future, or fight and spend that future behind bars." Tiffany stared at her father, searching for any weakness, any opening. Finding none, she finally asked, "Why offer me any deal at all? Why not just destroy me completely?" Arnold's expression remained impassive. "Because unlike you, I take no pleasure in destruction for its own sake. I build things, Tiffany. That's always been the difference between us." After a long moment, Tiffany picked up the pen and signed. Chapter 9, New Foundations. 1 month after the confrontation in Colorado, Arnold Fisher stood at the construction site of the Westridge commercial complex, watching as concrete was poured for the foundation. The crisp autumn air carried the sounds of heavy machinery and workers calling to each other, the symphony of creation that had always satisfied him most. Beside him, Zoe Winters reviewed specifications on her tablet. At 30, she now carried the title of Executive Vice President at Fisher Designs, her rapid rise justified by both talent and unwavering loyalty. "The modified support columns are being installed today," she reported. "The engineers say your design improvements will make this the most earthquake-resistant structure in the region." Arnold nodded, surveying the busy site. "A building is only as strong as its foundation, Zoe. Cut corners there, and everything above is compromised." The irony of the metaphor wasn't lost on either of them. "Have you heard from any of them?" Zoe asked carefully. Arnold's expression remained neutral. "Greg checked in with his supervisor in Seattle last week. Apparently, he's showing up on time and following direction." Beverly has moved into the Phoenix condo and filed a petition to renegotiate her stipend, which was denied. And Tiffany? He paused, a flicker of something, not regret, but perhaps acknowledgement, crossing his features. Tiffany has left the country. Bill's contacts report she's in Dubai, attempting to rebuild some semblance of a career outside the reach of her professional ban in the States. Zoe hesitated before asking her next question. Do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't discovered their plan? Arnold turned to study the blueprints spread on a nearby table. I've never been one for pointless speculation. What happened, happened. What matters now is what we build next. As they walked the perimeter of the massive construction site, Arnold's phone rang. It was Bill Donahue. The board approved the new succession plan, the attorney reported. Your retirement package has been formalized with all the protections we discussed, and the employee pension fund has been secured in the independent trust, beyond the reach of any future corporate restructuring. Good, Arnold said. And the Fisher Family Foundation? Established as specified. The initial endowment has been transferred, and the charter filed with restrictions preventing any family member from accessing or controlling the funds. The foundation will support architectural scholarships and community development projects in perpetuity. After ending the call, Arnold paused to watch a massive steel beam being hoisted into place, the framework of his final professional creation taking shape against the sky. You know, Zoe ventured, most people in your position would have been destroyed by what happened. Not just financially, but personally. To have your entire family betray you like that. Arnold turned to face his protege, his expression resolute. They made a fundamental miscalculation. They saw my discipline as rigidity, my patience as passivity, and my silence as weakness. They forgot that I've spent 40 years designing structures meant to withstand catastrophic forces. He looked back at the rising building. I applied the same principles to my response. Analysis, planning, precision, and most importantly, I never built on a foundation of emotion. Revenge driven by anger invariably collapses under its own weight. A construction foreman approached, requesting Arnold's input on an adjustment to the atrium design. As they discussed technical details, Arnold appeared more animated than he had in months, fully engaged in the work that had always defined him. Later, as sunset painted the construction site in amber hues, Arnold stood alone on what would eventually become the building's observatory deck. From his briefcase, he removed a small photograph, the Fisher family from 20 years earlier, when the children were young adults, and Beverly still looked at him with something resembling affection. Without ceremony, he tore the photograph into pieces and let the fragments scatter in the wind. His phone buzzed with a message from Beverly. The lawyers say there's no way around the agreement. Please, Arnold, we need to talk. 41 years has to count for something. Arnold deleted the message without responding, just as he deleted the 45 previous attempts she'd made to contact him. Some betrayals could not be forgiven. Some foundations, once cracked, could never again be trusted to bear weight. Arnold Fisher had learned this lesson through decades of building structures meant to endure. He'd applied that wisdom to dismantling the fraudulent structure of his family with the same methodical precision he'd once used to create it. As he looked out over the emerging skeleton of steel and concrete that would stand as his professional legacy, Arnold felt neither joy nor regret. Only the quiet satisfaction of a master craftsman who had executed his most challenging design flawlessly. The ringing of his phone interrupted his thoughts. It was Zoe again. Mr. Fisher, the board members have arrived for dinner. They're eager to discuss the transition timeline. Tell them I'll be there shortly, Arnold replied. I just needed one last look at the foundation. As darkness fell over the construction site, Arnold Fisher walked away without looking back. Behind him rose the framework of his final architectural achievement. Ahead lay a future entirely of his own design, one built on the understanding that true strength comes not from what you gain or even what you create, but from what you refuse to allow others to take from you. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.